All right, let's move on to Basket Case 2. This movie should have been a lot more fun than it was. I found myself bored a good half of this movie. I think what the director was trying to accomplish here was he was trying to just go above and beyond what he had done in the first one by throwing more at the screen as far as, bringing in these new freaks, practical creature effects, and those were fun and inventive. I mean, when you're looking at them, you're like, whoa, that's outlandish and insane and wild and imaginative, and that's cool. But that only lasts so long. Like, yes, the film can be very silly in moments, and I can be laughing and kind of having a little bit of fun with it. But this whole, the whole plot of this movie, as far as, I almost consider it a subplot, is this Weekly World News type investigator who's trying to expose Belial and Dwayne and this family. And they happen upon this house, which has all the other freaks in it. And the girl's going to her partner and she's going to her boss, and they're just coming back and forth to the house and trying to expose them and threatening and trying to sneak in. And pretty much everything that happens with them is unnecessary and boring and just bogs down the film. You could cut all of them out and this movie would be fine. At 45 minutes long, I would have had a much better time. I just didn't need them in this movie in the slightest. I get what they were going for. They needed another threat in the movie, but they just didn't make it very interesting. And that's what hurt this movie overall for me. So this isn't one that I'm likely to be revisiting again anytime soon, which is a shame because the creature designs are, very, very crazy and fun to look at for sure. But yeah, let's get into the movie. Now, this one starts right after part one, like I remember. And of course they end up living. Belial looks a little different in this movie. And he also looks different within the same movie. There is his normal look, which he looks pretty much like the one in the first one. Just you can tell that they put a little bit more money into him, and the person who was doing it either had more money or was a different person. It was just a better artist on him. He just had more definition. His color was more skin toned. It wasn't so plasticky and rubbery. And then there was other times when they would show him and it would be the actor who plays Dwayne. I can't even begin to pronounce that guy's last name. Look it up. It's like fucking 15 letters long. You have Frank Henenlotter as the director, and then this guy's last name, which is just looks like a spelling bee word. But yeah, it's his face inside the Belial body. And it's so drastically different that it's jarring when you see it. You're like, oh, okay, now, Dwayne's in there. Okay, well, I guess we're doing that. Because there is a point where they say, he creepily looks like you. Like, he's got the same features as his brother. I think it's the radio, or the TV announcer says that. Something. And then they just kind of put that in here. Which I think would have been cool if they had done it the entire time, like in part 1, 2, and 3. Although I prefer Belial's face because it's just so freakish, especially when he opens his mouth and he screams. That scream is haunting. In the first one more than anything. We don't get it much here, but that first time he ever screams in the first movie is fantastic. And we get to find out that his aunt had friends who are there to help him when he expertly breaks out of the hospital. Man, they got some bad guards there. And so we meet this Granny Ruth, which is pretty much replacing their aunt who had died, and her daughter, I think it's her daughter, who Dwayne has a crush on, a love interest with, and she's not really giving him the time of day. But like in the last movie, there's this forced romance where there's zero chemistry. There's no reason for them to be in love or anything like it. He just has a hard-on for her, and he wants to run away and be together. And it's like, we haven't even seen a single interaction with you two that would even suggest that she has any kind of feelings for you or desires for intimacy or just pure like sexual desires, anything. So we're just supposed to, but he's a lonely guy. He hangs out with his brother who's in a basket at all times. So I'm not saying I can't believe that he'd be into her, but they do not convey to the audience that they have any actual chemistry in the slightest, but whatever. And Belial also gets a love interest here as well, and she has a human face, which I'm pretty sure, I'm about 99% sure it's the actress who plays Dwayne's love interest, because it looked like her. It might not be, but it looked like her. Okay, maybe not 99. Now that I said that, I'm bringing it back down to 50. So, but yeah, that's what it looked like. And we actually get to see, which is probably the funniest part of the movie to me, Belial and this Eve is her name in the movie, have sex. There's a full sex scene where she has like a leg coming out of her back and he's like propped it up on it. He's just humping her. It's pretty funny. The freaks in this movie, my standout freak is the one with the like the teeth that are huge and out of his mouth and almost like a crescent shape. Then there's a guy with an actual like moon head too, but this is like just full teeth that are ridiculously disproportionate. How he could possibly eat. I mean, there's no logic put into any of these. They're just supposed to be imaginative and inventive and fun to look at. They're not supposed to have any kind of practicality in their, in their design. Most of them would not be able to eat or function at all. But that's definitely my standout one. For anyone who hasn't seen it for some reason, if you're watching a spoiler discussion, I would say the closest imagery I can come up with that looks like them is when the Dietz, the Maitlands, sorry, not the Dietz, not Lydia's family, the Maitlands go and they're trying to scare off the Dietz, and they turn themselves into these monsters. She puts fingers on her hands, and he puts, she opens up her mouth really large, and he puts the fingers on his hand. Like, it looks like some kind of a creature design like that, which is cool. And there's like fucking 20 of them. And there's a scene later in the movie when the guys come in to confront Dwayne, and Dwayne's like meeting him at a bar, and they're all trying to be incognito, and he doesn't seem to notice any of them when he walks in. I guess he's just not very observant, paying attention to the patronage within the establishment that he just walked in. But they're just wearing these really super cheapy fucking human masks over their face, and their faces are like this big. They just have masks over them. Kind of reminds me of, even, this is more ridiculous, but in Thanksgiving, when the turkey comes to the door, and he's got a human mask on his face, and it's like the cheapest mask you'd ever imagine. Freddy does it too in Nightmare on Elm Street 1 when he comes to the door, and Nancy's running up the stairs, and he has, her friend's freaking face on her. I was going to call her Beth from freaking Better Off Dead, but that is not her name in that movie. But we also get to see something from an old 1962, if I remember correctly, movie called The Brain That Wouldn't Die. In the Weekly World News, building where that girl works, her boss behind her has a thing on the wall. It's like, what does it say? It says, women's severed head lives, and it's a picture of the woman from The Brain That Never Dies, which is a great Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. So I noticed that in the background. It's just like a little tiny picture, a little Easter egg there, but I loved it. Loved seeing it. And Dwayne gets a new haircut here, which is 1,000 times better. The guy that's running the little freak show outside of his backyard, it's so shoehorned in here just to add. It's such a filler thing, but he actually was one of my favorite parts of the movie. I found him to be very funny. Like when he tells, she's like, "I'll give you $100," and gets over the phone. He's like, "Yeah, 100 smackers," and he's running around, and the door like immediately gets knocked on. This is way before cell phones, and he's like, "Well, that was quick," and he goes, and it's the Granny Ruth or whatever, and she goes and looks at his stuff, and this must be like 3 minutes later. And she's like, "You're a fraud, you're this, you're that." And he's like, "What the fuck?" And she leaves, and he's all mad, and he's like, "And what the hell happened to that girl with the $100? Fucking women these days, you can't trust." What happened to her? She called you 3 minutes ago. This guy has no concept of time at all. He thinks that she could knock on the door, calling from a landline somewhere where? I mean, she has to drive over his house. He thinks he's 2 seconds. I mean, he must be an alcoholic who just goes in and out and has no concept of time, because 2 minutes later, he's like, "Where the fuck is she? Women can't be trusted." It's so stupid. Another thing that's really odd in this movie is that when Dwayne is walking out in the backyard, now, of course, we're having to suspend a lot of disbelief by these creature characters that are up in the attic, but there is a scene where he looks up and there's a gargoyle that randomly comes to life, and it's never addressed again. It's never talked about again within the movie. So is that gargoyle actually alive, and is that just one of the creatures that lives up in the attic? Did I miss something? Because I was just like, okay, that's random, and now inanimate objects are coming to life? Like, how far are we taking this outside of the realm of reality? Because these are just supposed to be freaks, human freaks. So now there's inanimate objects coming to life. Like, is this going to turn into that Gargoyles cartoon show? That was awesome. Anybody who you're my age if you remember that show. And I like how at the end of this they just fuck the girl's face up and like rip her whole head and like twist it around and make her look like one of them. That's great. And then the main girl that he's into the whole time, they're trying to have a sex scene, and she's like, "Wait, I've been pregnant for 6 years and he won't come out." And then this like little hand puppet monster comes out of her stomach and gets some air and goes back in. He pushes her out a fucking window. They're frantically searching around for him, even though they know he's upstairs. They're all just like running around the downstairs for some reason in circles and screaming. Like, I don't know if they're just upset and they can't compose themselves enough to go and find out where he is to attack him or confront him or whatever, but they're just running around in a circle downstairs, like all of them. They're like bumping into each other, and I'm just like, he's upstairs, right? I mean, this is okay, I guess. And then he goes and he grabs Belial and he carries him on his side like he always does, because that's where he's most comfortable with him. And he decides that the only way that they can truly be happy again is if they are put back together, which I actually really like. I think that was a great ending, and the way I think this should have ended. I wish it was a better movie before this, but it's a really fitting ending for this. They needed to be back together. Like, they were not, like, they've been together the whole time anyway, so they should be together, because ever since they've been separated, they've been miserable. But as soon as Belial finds somebody to be with and doesn't want him anymore, because Belial was always the one who didn't want Dwayne to have a girlfriend, and then he goes to kiss this girl, and he can be like, she's like, "Oh my God, you can feel it. He's in love too. Like, you can both be free." And Dwayne immediately is like, "I don't like it. I want him back." And grabs him. And we also get to see that Belial actually seems to be in complete control of Dwayne in this movie at one point. When he's taking him out of the hospital later, he's like, "I don't remember." And he's like, "Well, he must have had, control of me that time." So he can take full control of him if he wants. I think that's it. So I will move on to part 3. All right, guys.